Hi guys and welcome back to Switch Up. A big thanks to Merge Games who have decided to sponsor another video of ours with their new game Sparklight on the Nintendo Switch. Those guys have released some astounding games on the Switch recently, and if you go and check the eShop, there's currently a really nice little sale going on to celebrate their 10th anniversary. As always, let us know down in the comments what you think of these games and if you're going to be picking any of these up.
First up then, releasing on the 11th and a bit of a blast from the past, this is Romancing Saga 3. Now this released in Japan back in 1995 on the Super Famicom and is the 6th game in the Romancing Saga series. This is a HD remaster of the original role-playing game, and new features include a new dungeon, new scenarios and a new Game Plus mode. Now Romancing Saga 2 has already been released on the Switch and I do own that one, and it'll be interesting to see how this one comes across. Now it is at quite a high price point considering it is technically an old game, coming in at £27.99 or your regional equivalent, but for fans of classic RPGs of the 90s, this may be one to at least add to your wishlist. Next up, and also releasing on the 11th, is a game called The Mims Beginning. Now this is a godlike strategy game where you take on the role of the omnipotent leader and need to influence the Mims to build their environments. Having watched the trailer and read the blurb on the eShop, it mentions having to fight natural disasters, fight monsters, and reveal secrets of the island that you are based on. And I'll be honest, I'm cautiously optimistic about this one. I do really enjoy a good godlike simulation game. It's only £7.19, which could be a double-edged sword. I mean, it's cheap on the one hand, but will that equate to a low quality? I certainly hope not.
Just all these emotions, you know. Awesome. Just awesome. Let's start over, but this time, let's do it right. There is a world out there, far different from the one you live in. A place where unimaginable mythical creatures roam freely amongst the flying islands. A place where technology and nature can coexist. You are part of an order that creates and destroys.
Okay, moving on to the 12th now, and from Cubite Interactive, we have the Zen Chess Collection. This states that there are 4 minimalist chess puzzle games included, so I'm not sure if it is actually chess or whether it's just chess-based games. But minimalism is certainly the order of the day. They use a very basic top-down view, whereas some chess games have a 3D interactive board with different pieces that you can choose from. This is very bare bones, but then to be fair, that's reflected in the price of just £3.49 with quite a whopping 75% off for the first week of its release. Now I like chess games on portable systems. If we're going somewhere in the car and I'm not driving, they're the sort of game I can play without getting motion sickness because you don't have to constantly stare at the screen. So it just boils down to exactly what this package entails for me, but for that price, certainly for that first week's price, that's not too bad at all. Next up is a very interesting looking game called Yaga from Versus Evil. This is an action RPG which is based on Slavic folklore and ancient pagan beliefs. It has you fighting monsters from the aforementioned folklore and children's fables, using a variety of weapons that your character forges for himself. You play as a one-armed blacksmith called Ivan, and you are under the influence of the witch Baba Yaga. The game promises that your actions will change the story and that there are multiple endings, as well as a forging system used to make the weapons. It has a very interesting art style and quite a funky soundtrack as well, to be fair, and also has a pre-order discount for the first week of its launch of 20%.
Savages. You are back, blacksmith.
Next is a game called Mad Games Tycoon, which I'll be honest, when I first saw I assumed was going to be a Kairosoft release, but it's from Top Lits Productions and has been on Steam for a while by the looks of it. This is a simulation game where you need to build up a game's empire starting in the 80s in your bedroom, which I really like because it calls back to people that did actually do that back in the day, before building yourself up, taking over the competition, hiring legends of the industry to work for you, and ultimately becoming the #1 in the business. Now there are only a couple of reviews on Metacritic, so it's hard to gauge from there, but it does have quite a high Steam rating if that's anything to go by. One thing I have noticed though is at £35.99 this seems to be a lot more expensive than its Steam counterpart. Thief of Thieves Season 1 is the next game on the list, and this is based on a comic series by Robert Kirkman. You take on the role of the character Celia from that series as she makes her way across Europe, taking part in a variety of heists and building a new team of thieves. This is an award-winning series and includes all 4 parts previously released elsewhere, and having just watched the trailer, I'll be honest, this looks fantastic. I know nothing about the comic series or this episodic game, but it gives off a very cool vibe when you watch the trailer, and looking at some of the voice actors that are included, there's certainly people that have done the rounds in the industry and worked on some big games. It's another game that promises that the choices you make will shape the narrative as you play, and the relationships with your crew will change based on those choices. It's £17.99 and it releases on the 12th.
Gee, thanks. But I don't need luck.
Plan, prepare, fact, foresight, choices, triggers, the who, the why, observe, control, finesse, and designate. Plan, prepare, fact, foresight, choices, triggers, the who, the why, observe, control.
Sparklite releases on the 14th of November, and contrary to its stunning visual presentation, is the first of Red Blue Games' major releases. And even more impressively, this is a team of just 3 people, and it's going to release on PC, Mac, PlayStation, Xbox, and obviously the Nintendo Switch. It will have a physical release as well, including a lovely limited edition games boxed set that looks to have some nice little extras. It's an action-adventure game that's set in a land known as Geodia. There's an evil baron in the land and he's trying to find that Sparklite core and take it for himself. You play as Ada, the mechanic, who will need to use that skill set to defeat him. You'll be fighting using a series of different gadgets, guns, and gear, and it has a similar top-down aesthetic to a game like Blazing Beaks or even Mana Spark to some degree. Now the titular Sparklite, well, that's the life force that supposedly ties everything together in this world, and you'll tap into this as your power source throughout the game, which in itself will have a risk and reward mechanic tied to it. If you're fond of adventuring with a friend, then you'll be glad to hear that you can play the entire experience in local co-op. You won't be alone in this world either. The people of Geodia will be at your disposal to either help or hinder your progress. There are 5 distinct worlds, or zones if you will, and your hero Ada will have to travel to each of these to defeat the Baron. There is a completely original soundtrack from composer Dale North, who also worked on the Wizard of Legend game, which was a huge hit on the Nintendo Switch. The final point of interest here for me is the invention system. The gadgets and items that you'll need to solve many of the puzzles within the world are invented by the player. Be sure to keep your eyes out for it when it drops on the 14th, and we'll have a lot more juicy info for you a couple of days before then.
Coming on the 14th, we have World Rally Championship 8. The World Rally Championship series is one that I haven't played for quite a long time, but I am a big fan of rally racing games. Now this comes from Big Ben Interactive, and as is the norm with this company, unfortunately there's no trailer on the eShop, and you can bet that all of the screenshots included are not from the Switch version. Now Big Ben have a bit of a checkered history on the Switch so far. They've produced some games that even without the trailer, when the game has turned up, we've been pleasantly surprised, such as the Isle of Man motorbike racing game, and then there's been others that have been pretty poor, such as the truck racing game, of which I forget the name now, I'm afraid. Now going by what the eShop tells us, World Rally Championship 8 has a new dynamic weather system, conditions that have true to life effects, a single player career mode that's been rebuilt from the ground up, calendar management, and an R&D system to improve performance. It has 50 teams included, 14 rallies, and over 100 special stages in the 2019 season. This all sounds very impressive, it just heavily depends on what the game looks like when it turns up, especially bearing in mind that it costs £44.99 or your regional equivalent. The next game then is called Bee Simulator. Now when I first heard about this game I was hoping it would be something in the vein of SimAnt for those of you that played that game back in the day, but it looks a little more action oriented, being set in a world inspired by Central Park. Again, it's from Big Ben Interactive, which again means no trailer, but going by the blurb it says you can take part in races, collect pollen and defy dangerous wasps. You can play in co-op or competitive on a split screen mode, and you need to receive orders from the Queen at the beginning of each day and then carry out the said missions. This one certainly sounds interesting, not quite what I was expecting it to be, but that's okay. It comes in at a price of £34.99, which is quite high, it just depends how much content it includes.
Without a series of unfortunate events, become a tiny hero and take on an epic adventure of miniature proportions.
Next game is Labyrinth of the Witch from Orange Cube. Now this game proclaims to be a roguelike dungeon crawler for speedrunners, stating that every time you play your experience will be different. It says it's easy to play and free of any difficult game mechanics. Now I'm not sure if that means the difficulty itself will be lower, or whether it's just taking out a lot of the fiddliness that you find so that it can be played as a speedrunning level. I'm not quite sure. The graphics are very charming and they seem to switch between an isometric view and a top-down perspective as well, and in fact the isometric sections really remind me of a game that used to be on the Super Nintendo called Equinox. At £13.49, it's just starting to creep away from impulse buy, so it needs to make sure it's got enough content to justify a purchase, but if you are someone that's still enamoured by pixel art, it certainly has its charm. Squidgy's Takeover is the next game, and I'll be honest, this is one that I was not going to include at first. Kind of rolled my eyes at it and went to move on, but one thing I will say, having watched the trailer, is it gives me a bit of a Lemmings vibe. Now you have to take control of the Squidgies and try to get them to the goal at the end of each level, and they have a variety of power-ups and special moves or abilities that you can use to get them there, hence that comparison I made with Lemmings. It may not be very good at all, it just piqued my interest slightly because of that comparison, and it has a 25% pre-order discount going up until the day of release. So moving on to the 15th now then, and the next game, highly anticipated by many, is the Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield games. These are set in the new region of Gala, which seems to be a steampunk interpretation of England or Britain, and it includes a whole new set of Pokemon to catch. Now I know that many people have been anticipating this game. There has of course been a Pokemon game on the Switch so far with the Let's Go games, but I know that some people were quite disappointed with those, and this is a return to the more traditional Pokemon formula that has been on handheld consoles for the past 20 or so years. As always, you will need to make the choice of which starter Pokemon you begin with, and your choices this time include the grass type Grookey, the fire type Scorbunny, or the water type Sobble. This is going for £49.99 on the eShop or your regional equivalent, they'll be on the screen, and as I said, releases on the 15th. The final game for this week then is a game called Woven, which is from Alter Ego Games. Now this appears to be a 3D adventure game or platformer possibly, where you take on the role of an elephant called Stuffy. The world is made out of wool, similar to something like Yoshi's Woolly World, and I must be honest, I love it when games take a risk and create a world using such a unique art style. It's what draws me towards the Yoshi and the Kirby games, more so than the gameplay themselves. This sees you exploring a world that has been threatened by metal insects, although Stuffy does join forces with a metal firefly called Glitch, and they explore the world together to find out what's going on. You can find blueprints which you can then use to customize Stuffy, and the body parts that you swap in can then be used in the game world. For example, you may want to swap out the elephant legs you currently have for rabbit legs, which will then allow you to jump higher to reach a further up platform. This will have its work cut out, releasing the same day as Pokemon, but it looks lovely and hopefully it plays just as well. So there we have another roundup of the games coming out on the eShop for the upcoming week, one huge release in Pokemon, and some really interesting games coming as well. I don't think I've been quite as intrigued by so many games in one week, and it'll be nice to see how some of them turn out. Another big thank you to Merge Games for sponsoring this video, it's very much appreciated. Thank you to our Patreons for your continued support. If you'd like to join them, the links are down in the description, and a thank you to each and every one of you for watching our videos. We really do appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.